He was dating a roommate, and he kept noticing this other roommate that he was a little more interested in. And eventually he broke up with that girl and started asking my mom out.
Apparently he would walk home from school with her. She said after a few times he was hooked, so he's the one that fell first.
My mom and dad had a very romantic and a very loving relationship.
I never really saw them fight or bicker.
They both believed in keeping the spark alive. They courted each other, and they were quite romantic.
Shortly after they were married, fresh out of medical school, Bill Jackson received a call from a charitable organization asking if he'd be willing to spend a year practicing medicine in the war-torn country of Algiers.
He was down in Long Beach finishing up his residency, just bought a practice, just bought a home. They were making some plans to move up the coast to Ojai, right by Santa Barbara. And the call comes out of the blue from CARE International saying, would you be interested in going to Algeria? Would you be interested in giving 6 months up? And he said, boy, you know, this is not the right time. I'm not sure I've ever thought about that, but I've just bought a practice. I'm ready to go. My wife's pregnant.
And I explained to him our situation. I said, sounds neat, but I can't do it. Went out and told my wife, and she said, we'll always be sorry. And somehow that struck me.
And so he picked the phone up, called him back, and said he'd go. And I don't think before that time they had really ever talked or discussed about doing charity work and going overseas and doing any of this.
My dad was much more obviously involved in trying to teach and trying to instruct and trying to help the people. And my mom was totally focused on the people themselves, making them smile, singing songs, playing games. And my dad wasn't that way as much. Not maybe as touchy-feely, not a big hugger, for example, like my mom is. And so I think that together that worked really well because everyone felt really loved around my mom. And my dad helped to make things run better.
So Bill and Audrey founded their own organization with a unique approach. Help local doctors, develop them, give them the equipment they need, and have them treat their own poor. And that's what they did.
He incorporated what he had learned, and I think he'd figured out that really the best way to make a difference is to get the locals involved. They know the culture, they know the language, they know the medicine, and most importantly, they're going to be there when we leave.
People often come to me and say, oh, you're teaching a man to fish. And I tell them, no, we don't teach these guys how to fish. In fact, they know how to fish in their pond better than I do. What we are doing is providing them with a better hook and some new bait and a larger net so they can be more effective and more efficient.
This is the very first place that we stayed with the patients, okay? When we newly started the Mabuhay Deseret Foundation, this is where the patients lives, and we go to the hospital by just walking distance from here, okay? It was Dr. Edward William Jackson who brought me to this place.
It's really important, therefore, to have a house like this where these people can come. They get lost in the big city. There's 20 million people living here in Metro Manila. And if you come here with a pocket full of change and you have no place to stay and you think you're going to be able to manage for a couple of weeks while your kid's being taken care of, you better think again.
When I first started here, I'm newly married. And you know, Dr. Jackson said, Terry, I badly need someone or somebody to stay with the patients very badly. He said like that. I need somebody there immediately. And I asked him where, and he said, okay, just come with me. I'll show you your new house.
Sa bahay po sa amin, hirap na rin po kumilos. Pag may hinahanap, malabo po paggabi.
Kung paano niya bubuhay ang pamilya niya, ngayon lalo na't may magiging ama na siya. Paano makakahanap ng magandang trabaho kung ganyan din lang siya. Kaya pinapa-Diyos ko na sana makaraos si Marvin, maoperahan.
When I first started with Mabuhay, every time I drive home, I'm always crying. I don't know why. Maybe it's because the changes that I see in people's lives. And I see some helpless young children who suffered so much during their growing up years, never even went to school for some of them. And it makes me feel like I wish I'm part of their lives, and now I am.
I remember one patient, a 96-year-old grandmother who went here almost blind with cataracts. And one thing that struck me that time was the hope she has. And I asked her actually, what drives you to have the operation, given that you are already 96 years old? And then this patient told me that the fear that she has is to die blind and do nothing about it. So the first time she heard about the foundation, she took the opportunity.
I think Mabuhay Deseret Foundation is successful in their way of doing things. It's because they are people-oriented. You know, they deal with the patients themselves. You don't, you know, when you offer services and missions like that, you can go and pay and give money and just let the mission go. But here in Mabuhay, people are getting involved. So they get themselves into caring for the patients, taking care of the wounds, dressing them. And this is the way that it should go.
Papasalamat po ako sa Charity Vision, sa Mabuhay po, na maka-opera na po ang aking anak na si Marvin Pudol para makahanap siya ng magandang trabaho at mabuhay po ang kanyang pamilya.
Maraming salamat din po sa Charity Vision sa Mabuhay Desert Foundation. Sana marami pa po kayong matulungan na mahihirap tulad po namin.
If say for example, Dr. Jackson was in front of me because he's the founder of Mabuhay, I would definitely say thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jackson, and thank you for all the donors too, because they do not know how much they are making a difference for the lives of these patients, and deeply I'm grateful.